Welcome to week 3 Start Sit Show by the IDP Guys. I'm joined by Mike and Logan this week. And we already got a couple questions, or actually one question. Let's go ahead and start it off with this. Scott is asking, flex, Edmonds or Metcalf?
Logan, you want to go first, and I'll go second on this little rotation.
Yeah, I was big on Edmonds coming in this year, and he is just not putting up what I'd hope he was, and he's sharing more snaps with Mostert. I know Metcalf's been kind of disappointing in what you'd hope Metcalf is, but he's had a decent floor and getting plenty of targets, and the upside is just much higher with Metcalf, so I'd go Metcalf there.
I would also go Metcalf. I too was very high on Chase Edmonds. I think he could pull it a little bit together this week. I think Bills' defense could be a nice dump down type of thing if they can't get to challenging deep. But I mean, Tua's been in and out, so I'm gonna be. I'll stick with DK against Atlanta. It's a good matchup.
I think it's time for him to break out this year and get on a hot streak.
I mean, he's the type of guy that could take one play to the house as well, and I feel more confident that DK could do that today than Chase Edmonds could, and that is a difference maker.
Absolutely. And actually, so let's get our introduction going here since we jumped right in with that question. We are a few minutes late, but that's not going to stop us today. But there are a few injuries that we're watching as game time approaches. The first one is Josh Jacobs. Have you guys heard anything about him yet?
Yeah, so Josh Jacobs, who very weird week for him, didn't really practice with an illness, didn't travel with the team. So, you were thinking that he wasn't going to suit up today, but as of this morning, he's going to play. He traveled on his own, took his own flight, and yeah, so you could stash those Amir White takes can wait at least another week. Brandon Bolden is going to sneak on for some third downs, but not enough for you to play him. Jacobs against Jacobs against the Titans it's not a bad matchup. I don't mind playing him. And it's an illness, so it's not like it's an ankle injury I'm worried about, but you view Jacobs how you would have last week. It's a kind of a low ceiling type of play in this offense.
And then the other one that we should be watching on the offensive side, at least, is Justin Herbert. He's a 405 game, I believe. Does that take any effect if he does start? Are you actually going to start him since he's a 405 game?
Yeah, if you get news before the noon games that he's going to start, I'm rolling him out because you saw the passes he could make even while he was in tremendous pain. He laid an absolute dime against the Chiefs on like a third or fourth down late in the game. So if he's playing, you're rolling him out. But if you don't get news, if you have a pretty good option, Carr, Cousins, like a low end one, high end two, I'd play him and just avoid the hassle this week. Because, the Chargers probably want to sit him anyways to keep their franchise quarterback healthy. That'd be the smart thing. So
I completely agree with that. I would err on the side of him not playing, which means if I have a good 1 o'clock option, I'm going 1 o'clock.
Then moving over to the defensive side of the ball, it looks like Roquan Smith is expected to play against the Texans. Is he still going to be a start, or is that hip going to bother him and cut down on his performance?
I'm going to treat him like we would treat most other players, that if he's out there, he is that type of player that I'm going to play him, And I'm waiting to see the weather of Chicago, but I heard it's not going to be a pretty one. That could also be helping Roquan maybe. But I wasn't sure if he was going to play because they elevated a linebacker from their practice squad yesterday, but he's out there. I'm going to play him as such.
100%.
Have we heard word on Micah Parsons? I know he was sick, but I'm guessing he's going to play.
Yep. As of the most recent reports, that he doesn't plan to let that stop him. It's a Monday night game. It's that I'm willing to take that risk that he suits up. I don't think an illness is keeping Michael Parsons away from this divisional game, and a very important one as well for both these teams. Cowboys riding high, trying to survive until Dak gets back. Giants trying to go 3-0. It's an important game for Micah for sure.
Yeah, and on the defensive side of the ball, you've got there's plenty of options to plug and play if you come to it and need to. But yeah, he's someone I'd take the chance on, and like Michael said, I think he's going to play.
All right, let's take our second question here. It's Marco. Who should I start at my flex, Palmer or Beasley?
It's terrible that in 2022, I think I'm about to say Beasley because if Herbert's not playing, that's where Palmer, all that passing game will worry me a little bit. So, and pretty much everyone's banged up Tampa Bay. Beasley might see an ugly 12 targets or something stupid. So, I think I'm going Beasley there.
Yeah, I'm the exact same way, honestly. Like, and honestly, with some confidence, even I don't expect. Like I said, I don't not confidence in the sense that I do not want to play Josh Palmer because I expect Keenan Allen to suit up. I expect Mike Williams to suit up. So now we're talking about the third, probably fourth, maybe fifth. If we're talking about Everett and Eckler, receiver for Chase Daniel. Not very exciting. So I'll go Cole Beasley, a guy that should get a lot of slot snaps. There's no one healthy right now. Yes. Yeah.
Marco is back with should I start McKinney or Woods as a DB? Cody Barton, David Long, or Luke Wilson? Pick 2. Thank you.
Okay, so for sure going Cody Barton on D or for linebackers, and I'd probably go ahead and go Luke Wilson too. There. Yeah, they're just probably the best two. Barton's been having a great start to the season.
So
then I'll have to go second.
So just to make sure, is this Luke Wilson or Logan Wilson?
Oh, I'm thinking Logan. I was assuming Logan Wilson.
Luke Wilson's a Seattle tight end that I used to have a crush on. So not someone. If it's Logan Wilson, I'd probably go. Man, I'd probably go Cody Barton and Logan Wilson. I don't think David Long's a bad start either against the Raiders. I think the Raiders are going to have nice sustained drives, which should, good plays, opportunity for Long. And at DB, I'll take. I don't think you're going wrong with either of these guys. I think both are. McKinney could be that. I think he's he's due for a week based on how much usage he's getting. But I'll probably go Xavier Woods. He's just put it together this season a little bit more.
Yeah, I think so. Like you said, it's not there. None of those are bad options. I mean, Cody Barton is a stud, and then David Long and Logan Wilson are both pretty good. So, and then the same with McKinney and Woods. They're both pretty good. I'd go Woods as well, though.
Angela's asking, who should I start, Burrow or Wentz?
It's actually my aunt, and I'm going to make sure I'm not playing her real quick this week.
So, Angela, make sure you're starting whoever the opposite of what Logan's telling you here.
No, I'm not playing against her this week. So, who they got this week? Wentz against Philly should be good. A little bit of a barn burner. Washington's offense has been potent. So, but I look for Burrow to get back on track against the Jets this week. I think Burrow's your better play. Wentz is a little more likely to, I think, drop off.
I'm of the same opinion. And I if it makes you feel better as well, Angela, I am facing this exact situation in one of my leagues, and I am riding with Burrow. So right or wrong, I'm going to be feeling the exact ramifications of it. Wentz hasn't been challenged yet. This is going to be his first test of a defense. He's played the Jags, which despite last week's Colts debacle is not a good unit. I don't think the Jags are that good. And he's played Detroit, which is a horrific unit. So I want to see how he does against James Bradbury, Darius Slay, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, all these great players in Philadelphia. So I kind of want to see that before I truly buy in. And like you said, I think Burrow does have a bounce back week and a true must-win game. Like if last week wasn't, they can't go 0-3 to the Jets.
Right.
Yeah, that would really hurt their whole season and their entire outlook if they do. Scott Temple's asking, Eddie Jackson or Caden Stearns?
Oh, man. That's a tough one. God. I want to go with the youth. My heart really wants to go with the youth, but maybe that's the dynasty angle for me. I'd probably line up. Eddie Jackson's a safer play. Caden Stearns is probably the higher upside play. I'd probably go Caden Stearns. I'd chase that upside.
Yeah, I think he's right. If you want to make sure you get, 5, 6, 7 tackles, go Eddie Jackson. But if you're thinking, you want big plays and you're trying to shoot for the stars, Stearns, I love Stearns too as a player. So.
And then I don't know if you guys want to go back and revisit Marco, but he did say it is Logan Wilson.
Okay. That's kind of
I think we were assuming that, so I think we're good.
Perfect.
All right, Clint is asking Jaquan Brisker or Donovan Wilson at safety.
Jaquan Brisker. Oh, man.
That's another guy I just love.
I am such a fan of Jaquan Brisker. I think anyone that's paying attention to defensive football nowadays is such a fan of Jaquan Brisker. That said, Donovan Wilson has been playing really well, and Jaquan Brisker has his ups and downs and missed a few tackles, which is fine, and that's good opportunity for that to bounce back the other way. But it could just be rookie struggles type of thing. Man, that is a tough one.
They're off to an almost identical start. 4 and 5 tackles and a pick week 1, or a forced fumble or a fumble recovery. So, big play and a handful of tackles, and they both had 8 and 10 tackles last week. So, I think if you want to go for the youth and the kid who's out there hungry, and maybe he goes off for double-digit plus tackles, and I think you're close there. And I'm going to go with the youth for the upside.
Both are playing turnover-friendly quarterbacks in Daniel Jones and Davis Mills. So it's to me it's an equal opportunity of getting a pick either way. I think I'll go Donovan Wilson just to make this question now difficult because now we're at a 50-50 split. But I think I would go Donovan Wilson. I do like the matchup with the Giants a little bit more.
So you mentioned Daniel Jones. We have a question: Daniel Jones or Geno Smith in a 2 QB league? In our weekly rankings, we have Geno Smith at 22 and Daniel Jones at 29.
I think I would back those. I don't think obviously I don't do the quarterback rankings, but that's probably what I would suggest. I'm going to quickly look up his rushing numbers. To my memory, Daniel Jones has not been moving as much this year, but maybe I'm misremembering on that. Yeah, I mean, 20 plus yards on the ground in each back-to-back weeks. I'd probably go Geno just because the matchup, I think. They suck. Both these teams suck, but I'll go Geno. I'll go Geno
too. I think, like we were saying earlier, Metcalf's going to break out, so he might catch Metcalf on a bomb, and then he's been playing all right. So,
yeah, you could take a 2-yard screen all the way. Yeah.
The teams we're playing are 2 different teams. It's Atlanta and Dallas. I think I would take my chances on Geno here.
Yeah, Daniel Jones is good for at least 1 fumble in that game as well. So you got to factor that in.
All right, Jonathan Owens or Hufanga. I'm not sure if I said that right.
All these questions are taking players that I love and putting them against players that I think are better starts and just crushing my heart because I really want to say Hufanga because Hufanga's been unbelievable for this team. But I think Jonathan Owens is a safer start, and I'd probably go with Owens. Hufanga, he's not going to get a pick like he did last week. I don't think that's going to happen every single time, but he is a true playmaker. So I really don't think you go wrong either way, but I'll go with tackle monster right now, Jonathan Owens.
I think it's going to be the same thing as we said for like all the DB questions. It's the vet for the floor and the young guy for the upside. But they're both these are all great options. So you guys, I don't think you can make a wrong decision on them.
Completely agree.
Ron is asking, is a half PPR league. He has Dylan at flex. Should I consider switching it to Juju, Olave, Etienne, or Julio?
Yes.
Jameis
is playing. He's dealing with those broken ribs. I don't know if he's going to be airing out as much. I believe Olave is on the verge of a big game. His air yards, his target share is all trending up for Olave. He's just a fingertip away. does it happen this week? Like it's a low floor, high ceiling type of play. I do think Juju gets back on track. The Colts have allowed a lot to the slot receiver over the last couple of weeks, especially last week with Christian Kirk. Um, Kenny Moore, about as great as he is not doing as well in coverage right now, or at the very least, whoever else they're lining up at slot. I don't think you're going wrong unless you play Dylan. To be honest, I don't like Dylan this week against Tampa. Man, I think I would go Juju for floor, Olave for ceiling. So in a half PPR, I would go Olave in this group.
Yeah, I think I can rule it down to Juju and Olave as well. Dylan will get you a nice little floor. Like he won't completely ruin you or anything, but Aaron Jones is definitely going to get way more touches. And I know their receiving core is all banged up, but Aaron Jones is the one who's getting the benefit of that right now. So ETN I'd sit on for a little bit. They're not sitting J-Rob anytime soon. I wouldn't worry about a banged up Julio. Yeah. I think just as a Chiefs fan, I'll make it difficult for you and say Juju too. I think he gets back on track, and Kenny Moore's in like the bottom 1% right now of defending the slot. So I think he's gonna. But I like Olave too. Like Mike said, high targets, high air yards. He's on the verge of a breakout too.
So I have a question for both of you. One coming from a Chiefs fan, one coming from a Pittsburgh fan. Are the Chiefs utilizing Juju the proper way?
I think he looks all right out there. We didn't throw it to him a ton last week. He probably should get more targets than that. But we do have a good mix, I'd say, of weapons. Obviously, Kelsey's just Kelsey. And then, we've got speed with Hardman and Valdez-Scantling. We've got a big slot with Juju. And we've got a gadget with Sky Moore coming along. Hopefully he comes out and gets more snaps. I think we probably should incorporate Juju and get him more targets. But I like the way our offense is running and the role he's playing. So I can't complain too much. But from the fantasy side, it's tough when you have a good quarterback without like a specific Tyreek. You got to worry about who's actually the one.
Yeah, Juju. I mean, it's been a tale of 2 weeks with Juju, right? Where week 1 usually is downfield even, and that's what I want to see more. And that's why I'm hoping that bounces back. His average depth of target was 10.3 yards downfield in week 1. That dropped to 1.7 in week 2, which is valueless. You can't do anything with 1.7. So if they let him go downfield, which I hope they do, which what the Steelers let them do when he had his breakout year, and I just middle of the field, just a chain mover. That's useful. That's good for fantasy. He's going to be great this year if they use him like that. Last week wasn't that case. I'm hoping that gets corrected this week. I think it will. I think it'll balance itself out.
Are we seeing a lack of a lack just because he's not a true number one receiver, or he doesn't have a number one receiver to go along with him?
I think Kelsey taking like the lion's share of the targets keeps him as a wide receiver too. He may be like wide receiver 1 on the depth chart, but he's the second option. So I think he should still do perfect in that role. I think he's in a good spot to do great. Andy Reid's very good at figuring out what players' strengths are and putting them to use too. So, I think it's just a little bit more of him not being the benefactor of Mahomes spreading the ball around a ton at the moment. So, and we're actually the Chiefs are running the ball more than they ever have in the last few years now. So with Mahomes, and it's working efficiently and doing fine. So I think, as a Chiefs fan, I like to see him win and look good. So it sucks as someone who I do have Juju in a few leagues. So.
Yeah, I'm not going to echo all those points because I completely agree with it. So I'm not going to waste the time. You said it all really well there, and I like the touchdown upside. He's only seen 2 red zone targets this season so far. But again, last week was such a weird, I do think last week was an anomaly in terms of usage. I think that was a little bit. He's not going to get 1.7 yards on his targets anymore. I think it'll go up a little bit. So this week will be telling. It's a good matchup for him.
All right. We have a pick 2 from Sean, Damian Pierce, Juju, and Christian Kirk.
Christian Kirk's a lock for me here. I'm debating Juju and Damian Pierce right now. I'm riding Christian Kirk until the brakes fall off, type of thing. J.C. Jackson's also going to miss, or is expected to. I think they're listing him as doubtful. So take another hit to the secondary for the Chargers, which obviously Christian Kirk will be. Oh wait. Sorry, the Jags are playing the Chargers. Okay.
Yep.
So Damian Pierce and Juju. Damian Pierce against Chicago. Juju, obviously, we just talked about it in length. I would probably go Damian Pierce. I think it's just a much safer play combined with decent upside compared to Lovey. I'm a noted Damian Pierce doubter, but I do think that Lovey Smith is not. Lovey Smith is all in on Damian Pierce. I think that transition was made last week away from Rex Burkhead to Damian Pierce. I don't think he's that good of a player, but usage will get the job done.
Yeah, I think Kirk's, especially with J.C. Jackson being out, that makes me feel better about it. I was kind of thinking temper expectations a little bit, but like you said, right until the brakes fall off. I think, Damon Pierce, your floor play, just based on how they're kind of trending up his usage. I don't think he's the greatest, but he's definitely getting all the snaps at the moment. So I'd go Juju personally, just based on his upside. I think being a lot higher, and he does get back on track. I think he gets his first touchdown as a Chief this week. But you can't go wrong playing Pierce. He should give you a solid floor.
Pick 2, Clyde McLaurin, and Gabe Davis.
I can't believe I'm saying this. Definitely Gabe Davis, but I'm gonna play Clyde over Terry, and it's I'll let the Chiefs fan. That was like a very solemn nod that you just gave there. But I thought you'd be more excited about how well Clyde's doing right now. But I'll go Clyde. I am, like I said before with Wentz, I want to see how Washington traverses a better defense this week. You got Darius Slay who clamped up Justin Jefferson last week. I don't know if he'll follow McLaurin, but it's still someone to be concerned about.
Yeah, and like you said, it's more of that I do really like Terry McLaurin, and I've always liked him as a player, and he's just been stuck in Washington. So it's unfortunate. There's a point where we thought Clyde was basically useless for fantasy. So you're playing Clyde over McLaurin this week is what I would do. They got a tougher matchup. He has been, he's the best receiver there, but he's not getting the most targets. And I think the Chiefs are, got the touchdown upside much higher. So. Yeah, I think Gabe Davis for sure, and then Clyde over McLaurin. And it sucks to sit McLaurin, but aside, he's such a good player.
My opponent's starting Carter today. I noticed Flacco is not throwing the ball down the field. Do you think Carter goes off?
I think Carter should get some touches for sure, and he might have a decent day. But I'm really hoping it's the Breece Hall breakout and take over. And I think you got some hope with Carter not going off due to how good Breece is and how good he's been playing with his limited touches. I think they're getting him the ball a little bit more. And, I think Carter's he's not going away, but I wouldn't be too worried today about Carter.
I think we've already seen Michael Carter's ceiling. And I've talked to a lot of people who do think this is Breece's week. I'm not willing to say that it is yet, but Breece is also too good of a player to not be on the field. So I do think I think it's a capped upside type of thing. I think you can expect 10 to 12, 10 to 14. Like I think that's what I would reasonably expect in a full PPR league.
Now we're going to head back to the defensive side of the ball here. Rashawn Gary or Matt Judon?
Matt Judon has a very good matchup right now, and his nice little revenge game narrative. Obviously, Lamar is a very difficult guy to get down, but man, that is a good one because Rashawn Gary is playing out of his mind, and I've always been a good fan of him. But I'll go Matt Judon. Tom Brady's getting the ball out really quick. I don't know if the Packers pass rush is going to be able to get to him because of how quickly Tom Brady's getting rid of the ball. And I don't think that changes this week. So I'll go Matt Judon. Chase the narrative, chase the matchup.
Yeah, I think Gary wouldn't be a bad play, but I think Judon's got to chase Lamar though too. So yeah, they both have sack upside theoretically, but I'm gonna go Gary. Honestly, I think the line over there in Tampa hasn't been doing the greatest. Like they've been getting pressure on Brady, and he does get the ball out quick, but he's getting, they're bringing in Beasley, which he's a slot and he should be fine underneath and quick. But they're missing a lot of guys. So I think Gary does end up getting to Brady once. So I think you're going to get a sack there. But yeah, I like the Judon revenge game narrative though for sure. That's fun. But I'm going to lean Gary slightly.
Clint's asking, do you think Cameron Curl will return to his full-time role today, or will he split with Forrest, or both guys play together?
This has been the talk of the week, like by far. It's if you're in our IDP Guys Discord channels, of course, if you're watching this through anything else and not subscribed, you should definitely check that out, idpguys.org. But it's been the talk of the town, and we do. I think the consensus right now is that we're leaning towards Cameron Curl is going to take a prominent role again. I don't think Derek Forrest disappears. He's played really well through these 2 weeks, but I think that means he could be going down to that 40 to 50% timeshare for Forrest, mixing in with someone else, and Cam Curl jumps up into the 70 to 80 range. So I think it might take some time to get back to the full-time role for Cam Curl, but they like him there. Ron Rivera likes him. He's a good player.
Yeah, I think I agree. In fantasy, I think it's something I'd probably go Curl if you had to, like this week, but it's something I'd watch. I think they're going to try to get them both on the field as much as they can, though. Forrest has been playing well, so. But I think, like you said, I think Curl's taking the role back.
And then Clint's back asking, Brandon Jones, will he still be splitting time with Eric Rowe this week?
I think so. I don't think that's kind of what I think, but I also, and I've said this on a few different shows, a few different message boards at this point, but I do think Miami is not done shuffling this defense because they are not playing well. It's not working in Miami. So we saw a change after we saw interesting lineups in week 1, then that all flipped on week 2 between those safeties and with Eric Rowe coming back as well, and it didn't work. So I think there's still a lot of volatility to expect. But I was talking to someone about his tackle line, which I believe was at 6.5. I would take the under on that. I'm expecting that 5 to 6 tackles.
Yeah, I think it's also you don't know for sure yet. I think you might see a lot of both of them this week against Buffalo. So it's going to be kind of a weird week because they might both be out there a ton. But yeah, it's like I said, very volatile right now.
Marco's saying, thanks for the help, guys. Marco, I hope you're winning your league again this year. Sebastian, Trayvon Walker or Chris Jones at defensive line?
If it's anything like last week, I want Chris Jones out there going after Matt Ryan. He looked atrocious. He will get Pittman back, but Chris Jones had 2 sacks last week too, if I remember right. So, yeah, I'm going to go Chris Jones.
Chase Daniel is so weird to try to project against because he is so – what game tape do we have with Chase Daniel? Like, what? We got to go back to 2010, and, like, look up his last full game for Canyon. It's just, like, he's these spot starters. So, like, I'm trying to remember right now whether Chase Daniel holds the ball too long and Trayvon Walker could get to him, but I'm struggling to. So I'd go Chris Jones, just a better player and still a good matchup.
Treylon Burks or Chris Olave?
Oh, man. I'm going Treylon Burks. I'm riding I have been on this Treylon Burks train for so long, and I'm just hoping the Titans actually use him. Kyle Phillips, doubtful, not going to play. That should open up Treylon Burks for the slot, which, if this is a full PPR league, which I think I saw in the comments that it is, I think Treylon Burks gets more receptions than Chris Olave. And he's just better with his touches, too.
And it is a full PPR league.
There we go.
Scott's asking. Oh, go ahead.
I was just say, that's a tough one. I first thought I was thinking Olave, but Phillips is out, and I think Burks is. Yeah, I really like Burks, so I go with the Burks play as well. With Winston being hurt too, I'd avoid a receiver there too.
Also, J.K. Dobbins is officially active. Kenyon Drake is being scratched.
And Alvin Kamara is officially active as of 13 seconds ago, according to Adam Schefter.
Same for DeAndre Swift, T.J. Hawkinson, and Aiden Hutchinson, all playing today. Good news.
Good. Luau or a Long at linebacker?
Is this Frankie Louvu, I'm guessing? Or is this what? What's that?
I said it's probably Louvu if I had to guess. I don't know who.
Right. So, I see it called minutes after that corrects it to Louvu.
Okay.
I'd go Louvu. They're trusting him right now. And on a side note, I have put a larger amount of money for my standards on Louvu's tackles this week, which rests at a ridiculous 5.5 on DraftKings if anybody wants to get in on that. But Louvu is getting the green dot and all the work.
Yep, Louvu, and if you bet over on that.
Angela is back. Do you think the body slam on Kelsey should have been a flag?
It's football guys doing football things, as my teachers would call it. So just Derwin James being a dog. Travis Kelce, that would have been a highlight play for Kelsey as well if that just didn't get flipped literally on his head as well.
And if you saw the Kelce brothers talking about it, it makes it a little bit, it eases it as a Chiefs fan, because I know she's a big Chiefs fan, because Kelce was laughing about it and having a good time. So I don't think it's a flag though, no.
All right, so back to some start sits here. Ryan is asking, if you with my flex spot today, it's a standard league, should I plug in Stevenson or with Jacoby Myers or Curtis Samuel with Ayuk?
Don't ride Curtis Samuel until
Jacoby Myers out, or Curtis Samuel or Ayuk.
I would go Curtis Samuel until we see the targets disappear. He gets incorporated in every which way, kind of like Debo, the Samuel thing. So I'm gonna ride to Curtis.
Yeah, and I've echoed caution with Washington this entire stream so far, but not with Curtis Samuel, honestly, because those touches, just like you said, Logan, they're Debo Samuel touches. They are manufactured touches for Curtis Samuel, and those are great because he's going to get the ball, because their game plan with him is get the ball in his hands. At the very least, that gives him a chance to make a play. I haven't seen enough with Stevenson or Ayuk, especially Ayuk with Garoppolo, to confidently say him over Curtis Samuel.
Jonathan is asking, Higbee, Burks, or Penny in the flex?
Burks. Ride the Burks. Just that guy.
I guess it depends on, if it's standard, I'd go Penny, but if it's PPR, I'd go Burks. And he gets back on track with the touches and gets you a solid floor there. Burks for the upside, though. I mean, Penny's good, though. Penny back on track this week.
Kenneth Walker gets the job by week 8. Mark it down.
I was just going to ask you guys, when do you think it's going to start being a play to start Kenneth Walker?
Until we see it, until Penny goes down, at least for a few weeks.
I think it'll happen around that week 8 mark, but the big thing is, and I said it all offseason, I don't want any Seattle Seahawk, and so far that's kind of paying out. So, it's just not a good team. So if they are splitting carries, which looks like they will be for a bit on a low-scoring team, with neither of them really catching passes, no, not really that interested. But eventually, Kenneth Walker will be a very good play.
Okay, start Pete Warner versus the Panthers or Louvu versus the Saints?
Warner for me.
You're not going wrong with either. They're both going to be great. They're both going to be near 100% guys. And I'll go Louvu because he's just been on fire, and I'm not going to say that fire cools off against the Saints.
And then there's been news that William Jackson is inactive today. Will this actually help the Washington passing game? Does that make Mike change his answer on the Carson Wentz questions?
Well, No. Well, Carson Wentz isn't throwing against William Jackson unless he's doing it in practice. But William Jackson, I mean, it's still going to be a downgrade for Washington, who obviously, it's not a huge downgrade, but it's another body that I always point this out with people when they say a starter isn't playing well. Like, they're still playing over, they beat out somebody else. Like, there's somebody probably worse than William Jackson behind him. So it's not going to help that much.
I just realized what I said.
Yeah.
the
Not with
dog
Philly anymore, man. Wentz isn't with Philly anymore.
The dog needed out, so I was, yeah. All right. Peter's asking, I have to replace Micah Hyde, Jair, or Dean, maybe Byron Murphy.
I've been playing Byron Murphy to decent success actually since the start of the season, but he was really bailed out last week by that fumble return for a touchdown. That was shaping up to be a really not great performance by him if he didn't get that. So I'm not going to count on that play happening again. I'll take Jamal Dean, who's been on fire as well to kind of start the year. I'll chase that.
I agree. I don't think Jair or Dean have much of an interception upside this week, but Dean's been playing well. I'd go Dean.
So Tua, Hill, and Waddle, are they going off today, or is the pass rush of Buffalo going to be able to get to Tua and put a slow down on those three guys?
Both. I think they'll get to Tua because it's still an unbelievably good pass rush, but Jordan Phillips being inactive is a big deal. That man has been one of the most important parts of that defense that is not being talked about enough since the start of the year. And he's not playing, and Oliver's not playing. That's a real hit to that interior defensive line, which in turn impact the edges because if you don't have to worry about the insides as much, you can focus more on the outside. So I do think Tua is able to move the ball. Obviously you have Kyrie Lamb and Christian Bedford starting at corner, so not the strongest unit for Buffalo.
Yeah, I'm missing Micah Hyde now for the season.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like you said, Phillips has been playing unbelievable. But yeah, I think Tua thrives on having, Waddle and Hill underneath being super fast and creating their own yards. So I think he gets the ball out with plenty of time. But I'd still think, that Buffalo D stuff, they'll get to a little bit.
So according to Adam Schefter, the 4 starters that are going to be starting in the Buffalo secondary, they have only made 3 NFL starts altogether.
Yep.
So we could see if Tua has the time to get it out. I think we'll see a big day from those 2 wide receivers.
I think it's time to start considering Mike McDaniels for Coach of the Year. He's now jumped to the odds-on favorite. I think it's around plus 500 as well if you're taking that type of betting angle for it. But he's definitely shaping up for that whole. The narrative is very, very much there.
Ryan's asking, will the Giants have more field goals than the Saints as a result of the defense they are facing?
Oh, kicker questions.
Hey, kickers are people too.
Okay, listen. They are. I guess they technically are. I'll line up Graham Gano over Will Lutz right now. I am somewhat concerned over the Saints. I do think, like I said, I like Chris Olave still this week. Mike Thomas is playing great, but the Saints did not play well last week. Again, tough matchup. It did not look good. I kind of want to see the Saints prove it to me right now. So I'll go with the Giants.
I think I play Graham Gano.
Yeah.
Giants in a little better spot with, have some explosive players, and then if they get down there, Daniel Jones not being able to capitalize.
And he's a better kicker, honestly. If we want to factor that in, Graham Gano is just a better player in my opinion.
So that's all the questions we have as of right now. So if you're watching this and you have any more questions, put them in the comments below and we'll get these answered for you. So moving on, looking at the matchups, who do you guys have as a surprise start or a sleeper start?
So Greg Dortch is a name that I've been flipping in my head and in my lineups left, right, and center because he's played really well to start the year. So like most people, if you don't know who that is, it's totally fine. He was an undrafted player with Philadelphia who now latched on with the Cardinals as their slot receiver this year, with obviously Hopkins being down, with all their injuries and losing Christian Kirk to free agency. They were hoping Rondell Moore would take that role. He's been hurt. No surprise there. And now Greg Dortch is starting, and he's played well. Back-to-back weeks of 10-plus points. Snaps did dip last week when Zach Ertz came back. So that's someone that I'm fine starting. I'm willing to play Dortch in a good matchup with the Rams because that secondary has not played well enough for the Rams. But I do want to see if his snaps shoot back up because last week was really weird and a very good game for them as well. Like a huge come from behind, great game script should have been. So I do want to see Greg Dortch's uses. I think he could be a sneaky play, definitely after the start of the year.
Logan, who's your surprise start?
If everybody on the Packers ends up being inactive, I mean, these are a little bit deeper, obviously. Romeo Dubs is someone who I love as a player. And if he ends up being the wide receiver too, and they do have Lazard at least, he's not the greatest, but if he's that one and it gives Dubs a little bit of, eases the pressure a little bit, I think he's in for a good day. And if Judy doesn't play, I think he's supposed to, but Alberto is someone I'd look to bounce back. I love him as a player also. And then someone I'm really excited to watch back, I think, if Michael Gallup comes back, I think he'll help that offense open it up on Monday night. Maybe not someone I'd play just yet, but, if you were in a deep spot and you were looking at some, bottom of the barrel guys, I think those guys give you some upside.
I'm so interested in Mike Gallup when Dak gets back. I think this week we're going to see a bit of a pitch count for him, but he's such a good player, and he's so needed for that offense. Horrific to watch, honestly, without having an outside presence. Noah Brown has played well. I would still play Noah Brown on Monday night if you need someone to. But I do think Mike Gallup is just that. He's a really good player.
So, based on matchups, who are you guys sitting on either side of the ball?
Honestly, I'll bring up. I don't want to level the Washington Commanders too much, but I am not playing Terry if I can help it. I love Terry as well. I think he's a fantastic player, but I think the wheels do come off a bit for Washington this week, and they're lining up John Dotson on almost every snap. They're lining up Curtis Samuel on every single snap, and they're lining up Terry McLaurin on every single snap. And now Logan Thomas is getting involved in the offense, and they still are checking down to the running back because McKissick's still there, and Gibson is occasionally getting a bit of his own. It's a very talented offense with a lot of mouths to feed. And I don't think that they're going to be dealing out touchdowns too much today, honestly. I really don't.
Yeah, I'm looking at the matchups, and other than that, I don't really see a matchup where I'm, due to the matchup specifically, I'm fading anyone. I think Pitts and London will keep it up. Pitts is in for a good game against Seahawks and vice versa. Metcalf's back in for a good game against the Falcons. Sit all the Bears still for now, other than Montgomery. But playing Cooks and Nico Collins could be someone if you're in a deeper league. I think his usage has been going up. He had a bunch of targets, maybe I think last week or the week before. I don't think any matchups really scare me off of anyone right now. I think there's some fantasy-friendly matchups today.
So Sean's asking our opinions on 2 trades that were just completed. He sent Najee for Breece Hall and Metcalf. Good trade, bad trade.
I think it's a great trade for the guy who got Najee.
I would probably take the Najee side. I'd probably take the Najee side. I like getting Breece Hall now. I think buying Breece Hall now makes a lot of sense because I think his value is as low as it's going to be this year. I just wish DK was a piece I was excited about, and I'm just not one of those guys, unfortunately.
That's actually a trade me and him made. That's my dad. And then I had Breece and Etienne as my 3 and 4. Just kind of waiting there on the bench with Barkley and Eckler. But I started off 0-2, so I was like, I'm going to get a more immediate production. I can't wait on Breece and Etienne. So, but he's 2-0. I think it helps him because he needed a little receiver depth. But we talked about it. I like getting Najee where I'm at because, I needed the more immediate production, but he's got some room to wait. And I think Brees Hall, like you said, is a great player to buy.
And as he just put in the comments, being 2-0 definitely helps with that. Because I do think Brees Hall is a good player.
Then his second trade was CEH for London and Pierce. Is this in the same league?
Yeah.
It is.
What running backs does Sean have?
Yes. I would take Drake London and Dameon Pierce here. Again, as somebody who's not a fan of either, honestly. I'm not gonna be numb to the amount of targets that Drake London is pulling right now and the value that those have. And Dameon Pierce will get as much, if not more, usage than CH. Obviously, it's not the Chiefs, so it's not as good. And Dameon Pierce is not a good pass catcher, so I don't think that's going to be a huge difference maker. But he can get you by as a flex. Drake London, a wide receiver 2 right now, so that'll work for me. I like selling high right there.
And he said he still has Fournette.
Yeah,
Logan, do you have? I didn't hear what you just said there, but did you have an opinion on this trade?
Oh, like you said, I like the CEH sell high. He's been, it's the Chiefs offense. He's just been really efficient, so that could drop off. And like Dameon Pierce getting 20 plus touches a game probably won't drop off. And then getting London, target hog right now if Pitt's not getting involved as much as he should. I don't think so.
All right, and then Sebastian is asking thoughts on the trade for Mike Williams, CEH, DK Metcalf, Joey Bosa for Jonathan Taylor.
It's a lot of names right there. Let's see.
So essentially, it's going to be Williams, CEH, Metcalf, and Bosa being traded for Jonathan Taylor.
I think unless you're in like maybe a 14 or 16 team league, I'd take Jonathan Taylor. The depth would probably be much better for those deep leagues, but if it's 8, 10, 12, I'd take Taylor.
I really like Mike Williams. I do think CEH is going to have a good role this year, but yeah, I agree. Unless this is a 14, a league where you need multiple starters, which I can't imagine it is because I don't think you'd be sending out 4 names like this. And maybe if defensive linemen have a huge boost in your league for sacks or something like that, maybe. But I will go Jonathan Taylor because last week's not going to happen again.
Those are all fairly replaceable guys. As much as I like all of them, really.
Mike Williams replaceable. Oh, this is dynamic talent we're talking about here.
So Angela asked earlier, she forgot to ask about Herbert, and we do know Herbert's still a game time decision. It's a 4:05 game. So if you can, I would not start Herbert. But how does this affect Eckler and the receiving core in LA?
I think Eckler's going to get an uptick from even more targets from Chase Daniel, and I think Mike Williams is good enough that they'll throw to him. But pretty much everyone else, Everett's kind of a riskier play, but I think I'd play everyone or sit everyone else on that offense and Chase Daniel ends up playing.
I viewed the entire thing as a downgrade of ADOT. Of those, all targets become close to the line of scrimmage and less valuable. So Mike Williams is surprisingly used close to the line of scrimmage nowadays. He's not being the chuck up guy as much. He's being used all over the field with in this offense, which I love to see. So he could be fine. Keenan Allen's probably fine. Everyone's probably fine. There's going to be, of Eckler, Everett, Williams, and Keenan Allen, 2 of those names are going to crater and have 2 points. That's probably going to be Everett and honestly, if I had to pick one, I'd say Mike Williams. But I think Keenan Allen and Eckler are good for 8 to 10. Honestly, I'm really not excited for this. 8 to 14 maybe. Like it's a very underwhelming group right now. Chase Daniel's not that good.
He's been in the league 13 years and haven't had a true NFL start, I don't believe.
I think he's had like maybe 4 or 5, but they're it's one game at a time, like every 2 weeks. something. He's got the greatest job in the world, though. So
Yeah.
I have the numbers right here if we're curious. So of 71 games he's appeared in, he's started 5 over his career that started in 2010. And he has 2 and 3 in those starts with a 68% completion. But as I was saying before, those are only going for about 6 yards per attempt, which is not great. So
what year was those starts in?
the last start he made was in 2019 with the Bears, which he lost. Yeah.
No surprise
So,
there.
yeah. And I mean, he made 2 starts the year before that in 2018. And then prior to that, you'd have to go all the way back to KC in 2014.
So teams are really going to be digging up some old films. It's probably not in 4K either.
Yeah. It's not worth even watching, honestly. So, like, it is somewhat interesting with that, that in mind, that his last start, in theory, you could pull the tape from a year before. Right now, the Jags had no tape to pull from. So I guess if you want to take that angle of maybe they come out and surprise him, Chase Daniel balls out as he somehow gets better with age, like fine wine. But I'm not willing to say that happens.
if they're preparing for Herbert, they'll be all right.
Oh, they'll probably still win the game. I don't think it's going to be a very high scoring one.
So just looking through the injuries here, Poyer's officially inactive today. I think we touched on that. And other than that, there's no new news. But let's touch on J.K. Dobbins. If you have him, are you starting him today?
That's like flex, maybe. Definitely not as like an RB1 or 2. If you have to, I think if he plays, he's going to play limited. But I think J.K. Dobbins is the best one. But I mean, I'd be real cautious. That's like a risky kind of desperation play this week.
I want to play him, and I really do. And I think you can. I think you could play him as a flex this week, like you said. I think it'd even be a low-end RB2 because I don't think they put him out there, and I don't think they make Kenny Drake inactive either unless he's healthy. After the injury he suffered, which was huge. Everyone probably knows it by now. It wasn't just ACL, it was the LCL, it was the MCL. He tore his hamstring with it. Like things we didn't know. So the fact that he's out there, has been practicing in full for, I believe, 2 weeks now. I think he's going to be active. I think he's going to be fully involved. It's just there is no floor because he could. There is a world he comes out there and is being worked back still 30% snaps in a tough, Foxborough type of game. So I play him. I just don't have any really confidence doing so.
So Peter's asking, do we have any info on Julio Jones?
Do we have any info on Julio Jones? Julio always has that ankle injury, which actually kept him out of the game last week. So he hasn't been he didn't really practice out the week. It's still very murky. And honestly, it's not that great of a matchup either. That Green Bay team it's not a bad secondary, and there's not many other receivers for Jair Alexander to work on other than Julio Jones. So if he's out there, I'm not that excited about playing him anyway. I kind of view it how I would have viewed Mike Evans last week, which is maybe he gets to 50 yards and maybe he scores, but I'm not willing to say that happens either because it's Julio Jones and Julio doesn't exactly like the end zone, although Matt Ryan didn't either. So I don't have anything new, unfortunately. I think he'll play, but it's not something I feel confident in waiting for.
Yeah, I am not seeing any new news on Julio yet.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a game-time decision at 3 o'clock if you got better options to do.
Yeah, he's going to feel it out in pregame workouts, which we have no way of predicting how that's going to go. He's a tough guy. We know that, and the Bucs need a win. The Bucs are really not looking too great, and they're pretty thin at receiver. So I think they're probably preparing for him not to play. But if you want to fill in, if you really need a fill in, if you really want to risk it, Brashad Perriman is probably the next man up for that 0.14-point ceiling. Like 4-0 floor, 14-point ceiling if you really need that fill in.
Did we touch on Kenyon Drake being inactive? Does that help your cause with JK?
Not really. I mean, I mentioned it before in the sense that like him being inactive makes me feel a little bit better about playing JK because if they weren't sure, maybe they bring 4 running backs on the roster for game day. But I mean, Kenyon Drake did not play well last week, and he's not that great in general. So it's not really adding too much to the roster anyway, having him on. So it doesn't change it too much for me.
I agree.
And I'm just going to try to search for a little bit more injury, especially on the IDP side.
So Denzel Perriman is going to miss his second game. Just off the top of my head, I know he obviously missed last week. The ankle injury left week 1 mid-game. So you can continue firing up Devon Diablo as a near top 10 play. I believe he's right outside of our top 10 for our rankings, but I don't think anyone has any problem with him in there. And if he's on your wire, which he was for some people on Tuesday's waiver show, don't let him be on your wire. You can play him every single week. Let's see. Anything else going on? Obviously, the J.C. Jackson, doubtful. I wouldn't expect him to play, which, for your defensive backs, you need pivots. Try to find someone. L'Jarius Sneed could be under wire. I like that in terms of how the Chiefs are using him on blitzes. Eric Kendricks was questionable with a toe injury. He's expected to play, and I would expect him to continue the bounce back. Slower start in week 1, week 2, well, obviously bounce back. So I think he'll keep it going. And Harrison Smith's also out as well, which not good for the Vikings, good for the Lions, and probably good for Lewis Sine, who is going to probably see his first meaningful minutes.
So here's a quick question. He needs to start 2. It's Garrett Wilson, Terry McLaurin, or CEH.
I think I'm going to ride with what we've been saying, sit in McLaurin. I think you've got good options there.
You know who the NFL's leader in red zone targets currently is Garrett Wilson. Is currently leading the league with 8 red zone targets through 2 weeks. I am going to chase that to the moon and play Garrett Wilson, and I'll play CH as well because I am hands on Washington this week outside of Curtis Samuel if I can help it, which I can with that group.
So, Mike, you were on a start-sit show yesterday. You took a bold take, and you did say Derrick Henry is done.
I did. Very proudly, yeah.
With that being said, are you looking at moving him to your RB2, RB3 flex position, or are you still keeping him at that RB1 level?
So it depends on if I have someone else on my roster that I'm emotionally more attached to, I will give him the ceremonial donk down to that flex spot. But in the meanwhile, he's going to be a good play this year on volume. But the floor is now gone. And it really wasn't too there to begin with, but he made up for it because he was Derrick freaking Henry. He's not going to catch passes. The Titans are not going to win a lot of games this year. Those 2 things alone would knock him into the RB2 conversation because what we saw last week is not going to be a Bills one-off. That will happen again this season. I think he'll be fine this week. I think we're going to see closer to week 1 and could get in the end zone, so it could be an RB1 this week. Closer to week 1 with that 21 carries for an inefficient 4 yards. But if anyone watched him this season, he doesn't look right. He doesn't look like what we saw. Last week, he broke 0 tackles. 0. Broke no tackles in that game, which is not good enough when you're a guy that needs to break tackles because you're 250 pounds. So, I mean, I'm not expecting him to return to an efficient way right now. That offensive line's a mess. The team's a mess. He's kind of a mess. So that's kind of where I'm at with him.
Logan, do you agree with this?
Yeah, I've always kind of thought Derrick Henry is one of those guys that if he can't get going behind the line, like he's very not easy to shut down, but it's very doable if you play the right football against him, and you can he just did not look like he could get going even less than normal. So yeah, he's someone who worries me. I don't think he's really going to be in that 30 carries, 240 yards, 2-3 touch. I don't think he might ever do that again. But
the
yeah,
big problem. Oh, sorry. No, I didn't mean to cut you off.
no, you're good. I was say yeah, he worries me. He's someone who worries me now.
And the big problem as well is no AJ Brown.
Yeah.
Which no less red zone opportunity there. And unless Traylon Burks starts carrying the offense, which I hope he does, it's just gonna be ugly in Tennessee, man.
Do you think Tannehill is part of the issue, and this will be somewhat fixed if Malik ever came in?
Maybe. I mean, Malik will help Derek in terms of a rushing quarterback offers more rushing lanes. But I don't know if Derrick Henry can hit that hole like he used to. Like, maybe I'm overreacting to 2 weeks and last week's playoff game and kind of the last few games before he got hurt. But he didn't look right. He looks so slow. I'm just worried. I really am, because eye test is not helping me feel better about him bouncing back.
Well, with that being said, we are over our 1 hour limit. So do you guys want to give a quick where they can find you on social media?
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Michael__Sicoli. You can put one in. I'm sure it's fine, or just type in that name. And I do the IDP Guys newsletter. So that link to sign up is in my bio. Free to sign up. Great content delivered every Wednesday. Highlighting some of the stuff we do, as well as just some articles I write. I do a nice Thursday night preview onto that for the IDP look. So definitely check that out. Link in the bio as well for that. Yeah, and Tuesday waiver show as well, live at 12 Eastern on this IDP Guys channel. So submit your questions for waivers, who you want to pick up, who you think is worked up after we have our craziness today. So definitely hoping to see you guys all there.
Yep, and then on Twitter, I'm at Sports Talk Smart. Pretty much live there. You can message me or at me, or I see a lot of the tweets at the IDP Guys. I try to reply to those as much as possible, but I do a lot of the rankings on the backside of IDP Guys, so you can find my work there mixed in.
Awesome. Well, with that being said, good luck to everybody today. We hope to hear good news that our start-sit advice help you win your matchups today. And with that being said, we'll see you guys next week.